Good afternoon, Nigel. How are you?
How you doing, Rich? You okay?
Yes, thank you for asking. So the squad all went for their booster jabs on Monday. Are the squad all fit and healthy going into a busy Christmas period?
Yeah, we're pretty pleased with where the squad's at. In many ways, obviously, Nathan won't be available for a while. Joe Williams still recovering, but apart from that, I think we're more or less getting there, really.
And it didn't sound too serious with Callum last weekend. So is he back training and available for the weekend?
Yeah, he looks fine. Yeah, Callum looks fine, which is good. So
Riley Towler's been recalled from his loan at Grimsby, where I think they were very impressed with how he performed. And is it safe to assume he's in contention to come back into the squad on Sunday?
Well, he's going to be needed over the rest of the season. So he's done well. I think it's been the loan move was good for all parties, really. I think Riley's had the opportunity to play quite a few games, and so just to get that first team exposure is beneficial. And he seems in really good spirits, actually.
I was going to ask just about his morale and confidence, because he had a tough introduction to the Championship last season, but going there, I think the Vice Chairman described him as a class player. Will that really help his confidence and help him make his next step as a Bristol City player?
I think just getting experience in first team football is very important, and I think for Riley last year, he made 4 or 5 appearances maybe, and in a side that was struggling, so it's not always easy. But I think what I've noticed already, he's certainly a bit more vocal than before he went. So no, he's a really good lad as well. He's got a lot of humility about him, and considering 2 years ago he was a midfield player, I think for him to make the adaptation into a centre back has been pretty good for him, really. So I like him.
I imagine there comes the point where you stop reflecting on Huddersfield and you look forward to your next game, which is Luton on Sunday.
It's not particularly good for your health when you reflect on stuff like that. So
what did you learn from Saturday?
Put it to bed. Well, look, as I said last week, we had some really poor decisions out there, which cost us dearly. I think that's the top and bottom of it. It was a bit of a painful lesson, I think, as much as anything, and disappointing based on the fact that of late our performances at home have been pretty good. Results certainly have had improved. So it was a missed opportunity, really, in many ways, to make an impact on the league table, because it remains a very, very tight division in terms of the points from playoff places all the way down, really, to the bottom 3. There's not a lot in it, really, and so games like last week are annoying, just for that reason alone, that it's a chance to make some progress, and we were guilty of making some poor mistakes. So it's life. I don't really waste too much energy dwelling on it.
No. And is it too innocent to me just to say the players can turn a negative into a positive and learn from this, and this will
we'll see,
help them moving forward as individual players, if nothing else?
We'll see how they are on Boxing Day. I mean, that's always going to be the acid test, isn't it? Whether the performance and the result is what we're looking for on Boxing Day. Training's one thing, and they've trained okay, but training's training. It's how we deliver on match days that is the most important thing, and we certainly didn't do it last week. We had a tough journey to Sheffield United recently, where a similar type of feeling to that. So it's disappointment with our own performance as much as anything. So I can deal with disappointing results sometimes if everything about the performance is genuine. But last week was tough. But anyway, well, let's move on. Ask me a different question.
Well, let's throw a positive at you. I'm going to be positive now because I don't know if you're aware, Andy Vyman's best goal return for Bristol City is 10 in a season. He's currently got 9.
Yeah.
How important a player is he for you this season?
Well, if he doesn't beat his previous record, then his second half of the season is going to not be as positive. He will be fine, and I think Andy, if you like, gets the rewards for his hard work, his tenacity. I suppose as much as anything, he understands what he is as a player, what his strengths are and weaknesses, and I think that's you should never underestimate that as a quality in a player, that they have a self-awareness, and he certainly has that. So yeah, he's always in a game in some way, and I think it's really important for teams to have players like him. And but yeah, his goal return so far has been very pleasing, and I know he will continue to do everything he can to keep that run going.
And I'll never put words in your mouth, but is it safe to assume as either a player or as a manager? It's a nice question, I promise. Did you always find it tough going to Kenilworth Road as both a player and a manager?
Yeah, it's a long time since I've been there, but yeah. Mick Harford was a tough competitor. And he's I'll bump into him again, no doubt, this week. So yeah, it was always a very, very tough place to go to, of course, and I think it's a ground with a real with a very genuine atmosphere, and we've got to be ready to deal with that. So yeah, but really, you know what I'm like. I'm not that bothered about talking too much about stadiums and other people too much. More about what we do ourselves. So I expect it to be a tough game, as I expect every game in the Championship to be tough.
And just finally, are the players going to be spending Christmas Day on a coach then, travelling up to the Luton area?
Yeah, that goes with the territory, doesn't it? But it will be later in the day, so I don't. I'm not bar humbug, you know.
I never would think that for a moment, Nigel. Can I just wish you a very Merry Christmas, and I look forward to seeing you on Boxing Day.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
Yeah,
thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Right, who's next?
I believe I am. I have been briefed, Nigel, by Jake.
What to expect? What?
Well, so hopefully
a lively welcome.
Hopefully, it doesn't come across as nonsense. But just picking up on Richard was saying there, will you have them in for a session as well on Christmas Day? Will it be a couple of hours in the afternoon or anything like that, or just straight on the coach?
Straight on the coach. Never been in on Christmas Day since I've managed anyway. I always felt as a player it was a complete waste of everybody's time. So you don't do anything apart from waste time, and I think if the reason you do it is because people expect you to do it, then it's the wrong reason to do it, isn't it? So we'll travel on the evening, and so that's that's a part of being a footballer that is one of the more difficult things. Is family times like Christmas are very important, and but we have to get the balance right between getting preparation correct and make sure that we do things right on Boxing Day. As simple as that. But I'm not a believer in just coming in because people expect you to. Waste of time.
You alluded to Nathan Baker. Just how is it? Because we haven't heard much about him in the past.
No, with it, I'll tell you more when I know more. So we're still in a situation where he's still undergoing tests. So it's it's been a serious one, and he's had, it's his second really bad one this season alone. So we have to be very, very careful that the primary concern for all of us is his well-being. It's not about really a return date, but hence we have to make we have to have contingency plans. But fortunately for us, we've got Riley's come back. He gives us some cover there. Robbie Cundy continues to train with the first team and is making progress. But it's a big ask for somebody who's been out for the length of time that he's been out to have a meaningful impact at the moment. So it's, as far as I'm concerned, with players like him, again, we've got to make sure that his route back into playing is a sensible one, just because of the nature of the injury, the length of time that he's been out, and he's such a big unit himself. We have to make sure that we manage the load with somebody like him. So, but in regard to Nathan, there's no real nothing further really to add at the moment.
I believe you've been handling Andy King a little bit cautiously in the past week or two.
Do you?
I saw him at the open
How do you
training.
believe that? How do you believe that's happened? Cautiously.
Again, I've been briefed by someone who should know a lot more than me. So
is James stitching you up, is he?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be
I've not been cautious with him, no. No, I've been sensible.
He looked sharp. Yeah. Okay. He looked sharp in the open session, so he's all good to go for the coming games?
Yeah, I think I've said on a couple of occasions over the last few weeks that his target date was Boxing Day, so he'll be in the squad for the Boxing Day game. And he's he's even when he's not playing, he's an important member of the squad just because of his influence on other people, and he's a positive contributor to the group, and that's something that is I certainly value that very, very highly. But of course, he's a player and he wants to get back on the field and contribute in the way that all players really want to contribute, and that's by playing.
How do you rank your concerns at the moment with sort of team performance? Is the recent drop-off in defensive security a bit more concerning than matters at the other end of the pitch?
Yeah, I don't think of it in probably the same way that, or maybe the way that you may be making assumptions. I reflect on performances based on what I see and what I know that we're capable of, and so when you're in football management, I think you've got to have a realistic outlook on what your team at any given time is capable of. So you've not spoken to me before, but one of the things I do like to say is that I measure us against ourselves, not necessarily against other people. So it's got to be based on what I know that we're capable of. And unfortunately for us, one of our deficiencies this season has been our lack of consistency, and that's it's a frustrating. It can be a real frustration, but I also know last week we created a lot of opportunities too. So when you have a game that's littered with mistakes and mistakes that cost you with goals and ultimately with the result, then it's not exactly a good reflective process to go through. But there you go. That's what it is. So I know where we are as a team.
The development and sort of playing time afforded to Alex Scott and Eamon Benarous this year is probably one of the great stories of Bristol football this year. It's real positive for those sort of young lads coming through the system. Obviously playing as wing back.
But I'm very wary of trying to set that as a narrative, because it sounds a bit like an excuse, and it's not that. What you've always got to remember is young players will get exposure based on circumstances, or just the very fact that they're good enough. And in regard to, so last season, for instance, last season, a lot of our younger players had exposure out of necessity. We had far too many injuries last year, and so some of them probably got first team action. In an ideal world, it would have been timed slightly differently. I'm not saying that they wouldn't have got it, but what I'm saying is that given the circumstances of how the season finished, there is an element of risk of exposing young players too much to that. But when you look at Alex Scott this year, Eamon too, they are in there because they are good enough, basically, and that's really, and I think they'll both go on and have fine careers, but I would be, it's pleasing for us that we have, I think, quite a good track record of producing players for ourselves, and hopefully that continues. But again, the realism of having expectations that that's going to happen every year, it doesn't necessarily happen every year. But fortunately, we do have quite a productive academy, which is exceptionally well run, and I'm glad of it, because it means that we, especially in the financial climate that we operate in these days, it's very important that we do produce players.
They've played as wing backs of late. What do they need to do to get opportunities in their more preferred positions in the middle of the pitch?
Manager who picks them in the position that they want to play. They're not bothered where they play, either of them. So again, who says that? Who's told you that if players just say that they play in one position, they're not going to get very far. So they need to play wherever they're put, basically. And the very fact that I'm confident that they can play in those positions tells you that they're pretty football intelligent as well. So, and you don't know where we're going to play against Luton, do you? So there you go. You might see them in a different position. Who knows?
Okay. Last one from me. But have you had any discussions with January in mind, and knowing what your resources might be in that month?
Yeah, plenty. You need to ask. You need to ask a better question than that. Yeah.
Are they?
No.
Do you reflect on them?
Right. In terms of recruitment's always about having a plan which is in place, and there needs to be flexibility in terms of how that works. You'll be aware of the financial situation that football is in, and we're not aloof from that situation. So. I've said many times before that January is not always the best window to operate in. That's not to say that I'm not ruling anything in or anything out. It will depend on circumstances, but that doesn't mean that we're not planning ahead, and we have meetings every week about it. So it's never a situation where you just go out and say, right, money's available now, we go and do that. Our targets will remain our targets. The time frame in which we can do things will be dependent on many things, and financial fair play is something that we, along with many other clubs, have to be very aware of how we operate. So it's not about finger pointing, or not about looking for excuses or trying to make justifications about it. I know what we need and where we need to improve, but I don't really want to. I certainly don't feel it's the right thing to do to talk too openly about what it what that might look like at the moment, because there's no point making false promises, and I think we are always trying to strengthen the squad, but it's actually whether it's doable or not, because I don't really want to bring plan B, C, D or E. I don't want that. I'll work with what I've got until I can improve it, and that's the bottom line.
Thanks, Nigel. Merry Christmas.
Okay, and to you.
Hi, Nigel.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. How are you?
I'm all right, thanks.
Good. Just one from me on the kind of subject of consistency.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, obviously the league is very tight. There's not much in it between the playoffs and the bottom three in terms of points. Coming into a period of the year now where you have got a huge amount of games in quite a short period of time, and momentum can make quite a big difference. How kind of putting that consistency around, is that quite important? Well, it's obviously always important, but is that even more important at this time of year?
Well, again, as I spoke about earlier, last week was a missed opportunity because we were playing against a side who before the game were only 3 points ahead of us, and we're in 10th place. So, and there are fixtures that have been postponed as well, cancelled through other factors. So, whenever you get the chance to play ahead of competitors, it's important that you try and get as many points as possible. Yeah. So, but consistency, it is something that we need to improve, certainly moving forward. If we have intentions of succeeding at this level, we've got to be a team which functions with a lot more efficiency. So, but yeah, there are factors which contribute to the fact that we have not been able to do that. Yeah.
What are those factors? Is that down to just missing players? Is that down to just kind of?
Yeah, sometimes it's availability. Sometimes it's the balance of the squad in terms of youth versus experience. A number of things, yeah. But I think we've had periods where, if you look at maybe the midfield department, where we've had our three senior players not being available at the same time, that does make a difference to the team too. So, yeah, but it's what it is. Everybody has to deal with that at some point.
That's it from me. Thanks very much, Nigel. Merry Christmas.
All right, Merry Christmas to you.
Hi, Nigel. Just one question. Halfway point of the season, I'm just wondering how you assess the situation and perhaps a grading on that, and what stood out for you.
No, I'm not going to grade it. Yeah, that's your job to grade it, not mine. I've said previously, work in progress, and every squad at every point is always work in progress. It doesn't matter, even when you get to a point where your team is what you'd envisaged it to be, or what you'd hoped it could look like, because you can never stand still in football. There's always a constant development of what you're trying to build or change or whatever. So I think it's been a very important year for us. It's been disappointing on the pitch, of course, but I think just the very opportunity that we had to make the number of changes that we did in the summer was, although it creates quite a difficult summer, especially with the backdrop of having played for a season without any fans in, so cash flow is a real problem for football in that way. So there was a bit of a reset in terms of everybody was reluctant to do a lot of business because didn't really know what the market was going to look like and feel like and what it was going to cost, and so it's been an interesting year in many ways. But I'm really glad that we still had the opportunity to make the changes that we did, and this year will be a different. The summer will be, I think, have a different feel to it this year. So hopefully, once the January window's come and gone, I think everybody's pleased for that to come and go pretty quickly. Then the next stage of moving the squad on can take effect. But in the meantime, the most important thing is that we get the most out of this season and that we improve on the first half of the season, because we're certainly very capable of doing that. And
just one quick one, sorry, as well. Just with the festive period.
Last one.
Last one, I promise. We've seen a few managers speak about breaks and that. What's your opinion on football being played over the festive period? Are you a traditionalist, or would you prefer a break in the future?
I don't think about it, to be honest with you. Look, the games programme is what it is. So I can understand it if the weather gets in the way, but let's be honest, modern pitches. For me, it's when I hear the Premier League talking about that, and what you've got to remember with the Premier League is it's populated with internationals as well. So the football season for an international player, it's just a non-stop. So there is an argument for that. I think the games programme with the Championship is so demanding anyway. Christmas doesn't really present a big change in what it is. I'm not bothered, to be honest with you. Anyway, I've retired. I don't play anymore, so I can let my hair down a little bit more. I hope.
Have a good Christmas, Nigel.
Yeah, and you too. Cheers now.
Bye.
See you all.